Hello everyone, and welcome back to Introduction to OPCloud. In today's session, we're going to talk about the advanced feature of simulation and execution related to external system connection, and we will see two ways how to do it. One, using directly the external connection, and the other one is using the user-defined functions, calling an external system. In order to understand how to do calculations and simulations, we have an example in OPCloud. Let's first open our example. You can go and load example from the main menu, click on the global examples, and we will select our example. Our example is under model calculations, and you can see the name country from name guessing system. In our today's model, we're going to use an API in an external system called nationalize.io API, and we will give it a name, and the API will return the origin country of that speculated name. We shall see two ways how to use it and to see how we can model it. We are also going to see how we model it as a system. We could have just easily demonstrated directly with two processes and objects connected to them on the system diagram, but let's see it as an actual system. How would I have done it? So I will explain today both the system modeling option conceptually, and then how I'm using it within calculation. Okay, so we have the name guessing system, and we have our main process, country from name guessing. We want to get the name and which option to use from our user. And the benefit is to have the name origin understanding changes from low to high. Part of the system is the API that we're using, and we shall also use it as an input to our processes, so we can actually use that value. And the result will be the guessed country. So this is our system diagram. Now, what are the main processes composed from our main process? Before doing it, we need to think. So the first part will be to get the input from the user, and the second part to be utilizing it to get our result, meaning that there is a dependency between one another. It's a synchronous system, and first we need to get the data, and then we shall use it. So if I'm doing in-zoom into that process, I can switch by clicking on the OPD tree or selecting it and doing in-zoom. We can see that the country from name guessing has two sub-processes composing it. First is the user input getting. Second is the name origin guessing. Now you can see that we're trying to connect the actual object to the actual process that we're going to use. So the user is the handler for the first process, and the first process is yielding two things. First of all, which user to check, and the second one is which lookup method to use. We can use it an external process or user-defined. Those are the next input coming to the second process. The second process is actually the one doing it. Since we're both using the API URL, it is connected directly to the second process. And the result of it will be the guest country. Now, pay attention to OPM methodology in that part. We're stepping one at a time. We're not doing the actual thing. This is a conceptual level modeling. I know that the name origin guessing can be one or the other, and the input getting can be several processes. But at that level, it doesn't bother me. I'm just looking at this level only. in order to see it a little bit more nicely, I can just zoom out a little bit. Let's go for the user input getting. And again, I can select it. If I'm hovering on top of it, I can see which one is done, and I see that it is unfolded view because we have two parts of doing user getting. I'm first name getting, and the second method selecting by the user. You can see that the result of the name getting is an input name, and we have the alias as already discussed in previous sessions, and the method selecting. Let's see how we define it, because this is the point of our conversation here. So first of all, I need to have the user connected to the process. Once it is connected, you can see again that we have the special icon asking for user input. Now, when the icon is connected, it means it will pop up a pop-up message for the user in order to insert its value. If we will see what actually is defined as the user input, we can see that it is defined as a user-defined function, and we're using the parameter user-defined, user input. You can see that we're returning user input. As is the string, we take it as is. Of course, you can add any kind of value validation and so on. For our purposes, we're not going to do it to keep it simple. The next thing is the method selecting. Again, it is defined to ask for a user, and if I will look for it, again, we're getting the user input and passing it along. Currently in OPCloud, we can only get a typed text input, and later in future version of OPCloud, it will be able to set up a specific value and ask for a different option automatically, meaning currently we're expecting to get external or user-defined, and it will set up the object exactly like it was getting it. Here it will get any value. Here we're expecting to get either external or user-defined state that will be set. So we're getting back, those are filled, and now we're getting into the name origin guessing. So we're getting into name origin guessing, and we can see that it's composed of two options. Either it is the user-defined function, or it is the external. The difference is the user-defined can be very robust with a lot of things, meaning that we encapsulate within it a lot of code within it, and we don't need to model it. While the external is doing only a call to the external system, which we shall see soon. So let's first see what's the code with the country name by user-defined function. As you can see, things that are connected to the father objects are also connected to the sub-processes. I can switch between them with that kind of line. As you can see here, I can switch it back and forth because they are identical and having the same purpose. So first I will select the process. I've already defined the function, so I can use the update computation, and it will automatically open it instead of going through the options. And you can see here the code. I've already included two options of how to do the code. Here we're doing a call, writing it in JavaScript. As you can see, it is much more complicated than regular modeling. And we're using the API and calling the username. As you can see below, I can use the actual API and replace the parameter with the code or not, depending on my needs. And the username is a parameter that I'm getting. You can feel and see that this is an IDE embedded in OPCloud, meaning it can show us if something is missing, if I typed it incorrectly, if I've done a mistake, forgot the semicolon, and so on. And this is how we're doing both options. Currently it will do option 1, but we can do it in option 2, depend on how I'm doing it with a synchronous call or asynchronous call. and using promises, and I'm using the get method to get my need. And as a result, since I'm doing it already in the user-defined, once I get my result, I can also parse it with the JSON and return the final answer that I've already got. Meaning that, as you can see here, I just call this process. When hovering, you can always see the user-defined code, and I will get the result in the guest country. The second option, as it is done, you can see it by selecting the user-defined, have a condition to go here, and external have the condition to go here, will result also in the guest country, but it is elaborated on lower OPDs. Let's see how it is looking at the lower OPD. Here you can see that we're doing two steps. First, we're calling the external function API, and then we're doing the JSON parsing once we got the result from that API. As you can see again, in the OPM methodology, we're only showing what we need to see in that specific OPD, meaning that I'm showing that I have the API URL that I'm using. You can see here with the API, I can see the username, which is the alias I got here from the external condition. I get the JSON result, and I'm doing the parsing within it, and then resulting in the guest country. Let's see how the external function looks. When I'm selecting the process, here it is already set, but let's say it is not set. I'm clicking on the computation, clicking on external, and I have the pop-up set up for me. The first pane text is putting the URL, the external URL that I'm trying to call. It can be any kind of URL, looking like specific, as you can see here in the URL outside. You can see that I'm using the alias, and it will be replaced during simulation, meaning that I can construct my URL during simulation time. The parameter are things that will be concatenated to the URL later on. You can see that in the usage pane that pops up, I can use parameter 1 with its value, parameter 2 with its value, meaning that OPCloud will try first to replace the name currently here as an alias, try to take its value, and it will be the parameter concatenated in the URL parameters, and we'll take the username, also replace it as an alias with the value of the URL parameter, meaning we are expected to see https API nationalize.io question mark name equals username value. And that will be the code that will be performed. You can have several parameters defined depending on your system and so on. It is very robust mechanism that you can call any external system. You can use to set up your own server and then use it as a mediator server to connect to other external system and so on. Here we're using the user-defined just to do the JSON parsing that we already seen as part of the user-defined function option. Okay, so now we're ready. Let's simulate it. We'll go to the execution simulation menu. We can define whether we want it to be faster or not faster. And since we're calling an external system, we want to do it as an synchronous execution. So we click on the sync execute. Let's see how it is done. As you can see, it's getting inside, and first we'll get the name getting. It asks for a name. Let's give it a name, for example, John. You can see that it was set up, and now let's try to see a function that it looks up. Let's select first the user-defined function, and you can see that it is marked as user-defined. Now it will get to the name guessing. As you can see, since it's user-defined, it will go into our process. Now the API is called and we get our response, which is the US or other countries. The response is larger than that, and we can do whatever we want to do. Once we get the API from here, we can get it, with the percentage of how it is calculated and so on. The rest of it is up to us. Currently, I just want to show the result in general in order to explain things to you. Now I want to show another option in OPCloud. Once I'm already run, it knows the value, and we can keep the value between simulation runs. If I wanted to go back, I'm just clicking out to get out from simulation mode, like that, and that will be resetting the values that were set during the simulation. As you can see, this value and the rest of the values that are not predefined will be set. Here you can see it is set back to value, and if I will go back to input getting, you can see that everything is set and it is not external nor user defined and so on. So let's run again. Here you can see that it is running. Again, it's going to the values. Again, let's insert John. And this time, for the method, we're going to select external. You can see now external is selected automatically. And this is a regular object with states. Now you can see it going in. Now it performs first a call. It will get the result. You will be able to see here the JSON result. As you can see here, there's a difference. But in the end, we can see it is the same result. Let's switch back so you will be able to see how regularly you get the result here. You see you get the name and the country and with the probability of the guess. So we could have done a different kind of parsing inside and select to show the probability and yields different kind of result. But in the end, we just wanted to demonstrate the options and the power that we can use here using external directly, meaning that you don't need to code, you don't need to understand. As I said, just clicking update, putting the URL and the parameters, and OPCloud will do everything for you, or just doing it for yourself. Again, this is the same call, but remember, instead of doing that kind of call, you can use the external method and just calling the API like you want. But in that kind of call, you have more power that you can do things together instead of modeling another result and other processes. I do hope that you enjoyed this session of advanced use of OPCloud, and we'll see you in the next sessions. Have a great day. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and see you soon.